Hi, Mike here. You're watching Scout Restoration Yukon. In this video, Scout Rear Axle 2, I identify the rear axle. Then I check the pinion backlash and axle Endplay. I pull the hubs off the tapered axles. I pull the axle bearings off the axles, and pull the axle seals. I will show all the details. I hope you like it. If you want to help, please subscribe to Scout Restoration Yukon. It's free. Mike Morrow, over and out. Hi, Mike here. You're watching Scout Restoration Yukon. This is the axle that I removed from the 1966 Scout 800. I've removed the springs. This is the way it sits in the Scout. The axle sits on top of the leaf springs, facing this way. So this actually is the passenger side. This is the driver's side of this axle. So I've been looking at it, looking for numbers. First, let's take a look at axle identification. The Dana 44 axle cover is a different shape and much bigger than the Dana 27 axle cover, as you can see in these pictures. Another check is casting numbers. It is another clue that helps. So there's one here on the web here and one here, and they're just a U.S. patent. It's a casting number. This one up here doesn't do a lot for me. But here we have a number that's quite helpful. It's 44-1, which indicates that it may well be a Dana 44. Another quick way to check is the diameter of the tube. It's just another clue. Doesn't exactly help everything, and it's 2 3/4 inches in diameter. And I believe the Dana 27 is 2.5. I'm not exactly sure about that, but I do know it is much smaller because this is a much heavier axle. Now, on the passenger side of the axle, at the back side of it, here's a date and here's a BOM number, bill of materials number, and that's a really important number. So you have to sand this down, clean this up till you find those numbers. So this is the BOM number, 602962. Space 2. And I looked that up on the Dana website, and they say it's a semi-floating power lock limited slip Dana 44, 1967 to 1978. And the other number here is the date, December the 10th, and it just says 8C3. So I looked that up, and it's 68. So it's December the 10th, 1968, and this is a 1966 Scout. So with that in mind now, if we go over to the crown gear, it's got the same date, 1968, right? And it's got the gear ratio, if I turn it, 4711, which is 427. Before taking an axle apart, I always like to check the backlash just to know what I've got. So I've got this axle sitting like this with the yoke is hard on the bench, so the yoke cannot move. And I've got my dial indicator on there, and it's set at 0, well, close to 0, approximately 0. I'm not being too particularly precise here. And now that's the backlash right there. Pretty well 10 thousandths. And the spec is 6 to 12 thousandths. So it's actually in the allowable specs at the high end of it, but it's in the specs. So that's good to know. Now I'm checking the end play on the axle. There it is. It's 20 thousandths of an inch. So that's excessive. The spec for the end play is 1 to 7 thousandths of an inch. So that's just good information to know before we take it apart. The next thing that's going to help identifying this axle, when I remove this dust cap, by the way, all the parts on the left go in the parts container for the left side, and all the parts on the right go on the right side, and we have to keep it that way. So because now we have a cotter pin with a castellated nut on it, that means that this is a tapered shaft. So now we know we have a Dana 44 axle with tapered axles. It's a tapered fit. Attention fellow Scout enthusiasts. Thanks for watching. I hope that you're getting useful insights from my videos. If I can earn 1,000 subscribers, I will be able to create Scout videos for a long time. Please like and subscribe so that we can continue this journey for years to come. I will show all the details. Over and out. So I'm removing the cotter pin and the nut. So, 1 7/16 socket. That came off easy. Nut. Washer. So I'll try this puller here, see how it goes. Well, of course, that's on there. I don't want to heat it, but if I have to, I will heat it. Whoa! There she comes. This is interesting. So here we have the hob, and you can see the wire is out of the seal, out of the axle seal, right? And just quickly, I'll be looking at things in more detail later. But just for now, that's the spring for the seal. And I'm just having a quick, very quick look at this hob here. Looks like somebody put a speedy sleeve on there. Anyway, we'll clean that up later on and have a closer look. Let's shove that over here. So just wire brush these threads here a little bit. Remove these 4 nuts. Where's this? Stick to the socket. So the orientation is pretty simple because the wheel cylinder goes at the top, but we have to remember that all of this goes on this side. So we have that, right? And we have the seal retainer here with the seal in it. Okay, so put that there. I'll put this backing plate on this hub. I'm just checking with a knife to make sure there's no shims there. So I got this big flat washer. It's not the one that goes with the axle. And I got the original axle nut. And I'm just gonna run that in and try to center this washer a little bit. Okay, that's close enough. I've got my slide hammer with a small 3-jaw puller. I hope it's big enough for the job. And I've put an O-ring on there. So now what I want to do is get these guys on here with the O-ring, right? center everything like that. Okay, that's not quite what I wanted. There we go. Now, okay, so I got that like that. My slide hammer. There we go. Out she comes. So the axle's out. Just have a little look at that. Take this nut back off. Of course, it's pretty dirty. The original nut goes in the parts tray. This washer I'll use on the other side. And you can see, I believe this Scout was underwater for a while. I don't know for how long, but there was water in the axle housing. And that's evidence of water there. I'll just clean the bearing up a little bit with some Varsol. And same thing, it's not badly pitted, but it's got all this water damage. Definitely not going to reuse these bearings. It's just kind of a preliminary cleaning so I can have a better look at what's there. Now this time, ho 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 ho! Now we have a whole bunch of shims here. Four shims. There we go. Of course, everything's hot because I heated it. So it's basically the same old thing. These bearings are getting replaced. So just remove these studs. And I'll remove the key here from the spline. And this bearing should just pull off this way. It's worth noting there's a taper at one end of this key. Right? And so the key goes in with the taper to the front and down, obviously, because the keyway slopes up, right? It's just worth noting. So I'm going to see if I can pull this bearing off this way. This is a bearing separator, but I've got it backwards, so the flat side of the bearing separator is against, and it doesn't even touch the outer race. It's just touching the inner race. And then I'm going to use my steering wheel puller, two threaded rods in the bearing separator, and my steering wheel puller here, right? And I'm going to put double nuts. I might have made these rods a little long. Let's see how it goes. Put double nuts on here. Alright, anyway. Now with 2 9/16 wrenches, just going to lock these double nuts together like that. That. Let's just see what happens. Off comes the bearing. Probably could have just tapped it off of there. So I'm just going to take this whole unit out together. I'm going to catch the bearing, right? And the bearing is going to get replaced. They're both going to get replaced. The bearing goes with the race. So I'll be able to get numbers off. There's legible numbers on this bearing. So easy peasy to order parts. Just use the bearing numbers. Might be a little different story with the seal. And this taper on the shaft looks pretty good. It's not grooved or damaged in any way. So that's pretty cool. If I pull this axle out, you can just check here. I don't see any bad wear here, adverse wear here. But we'll reinspect everything when it's all cleaned up properly. So to pull the inside seal out, I'm going to use this tool here. It has a hook on the end, and you just hook it on the seal, and you hold it here, right? And you got a place to hit here. There's definitely other ways to take seals out, but that's pretty easy. There we go. I'm wondering if there's a number on the seal. So we have a National Oil Seal made in USA, part number 7244. I'm sure that'll cross over to something else. And this is an old original seal because it's leather. Yep, it's actually an old leather seal. Okay. Same thing other side. Okay, now that the seal's out, I'm looking down the axle tube through. You can see the splines on the side gear for the differential. We're looking through the splines on the side gear, and in between the side gears, there's a thrust block. The thrust block absorbs the thrust from the axles. And in front of the thrust block, you can see the button. It's a hardened steel button. And this hardened steel button, the small end goes into the thrust block, and the axle rides against the big end. So I'm going to fish that out of there right now. There it is. Now that's a very special little part. We don't want to lose that. So you can see this end here, and you can see where this end here rides here. Right? So it can be quite tricky to get those buttons back in there, but everything is possible. Right? This is a tool I made for cleaning out axle tubes, among other things. It's just a steel rod with a half a flat washer welded to it. But it works quite well. So I can just pull some of the bigger stuff out of here. That's it. Not much on that side. In conclusion, so far so good. I should have been more careful when pulling that hub. I certainly know better, but when I'm filming and speaking, I sometimes get distracted and forget the basics, like don't stand in front of a potential projectile. In my next video, Scout Rear Axle 3, Closer Look, I remove the crown and pinion, then I thoroughly clean the axle housing and related parts and inspect them. Bonus, I drill and tap a vent hole in the top of the pumpkin. I will show all the details. I hope you like it. If you want to help, please subscribe to Scout Restoration Yukon. It's free. Mike Morrow, over and out.